So if you're a retail executive right now, you are probably a little terrified.
Oh, absolutely. Terrified is the right word.
Right. Because think about it. You've spent tens of millions of dollars, and honestly, sometimes decades, building up these massive digital nervous systems for your company. I
Yeah.
mean, we're talking about enterprise resource planning software,
Uh-huh.
global merchandising platforms, demand planning tools.
All the heavy mission critical stuff.
Exactly. The really complex plumbing of the business. And let's be real, it's usually incredibly ugly to look at.
Yeah, not the most user-friendly interfaces.
Definitely not. But the prevailing wisdom right now is that the AI resolution is basically going to force you to just burn it all down.
Yeah.
Like imagine someone walking into your office today and saying, hey, you need to rip out the entire expensive foundation of your company and completely start over just to make room for AI.
Yeah, that is a guaranteed way to make a chief information officer just break out in a cold sweat. I mean, that rip and replace pitch, it really ignores the reality of how these massive corporations actually function day to day.
Which perfectly sets up what we're getting into today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We are looking at a really crucial piece of research today. It was published on June 10th, 2026 by Shish S., and it's called The Agentic Layer and the New Plumbing of Retail.
It's a fascinating read.
It really is. And our mission today is to explore this massive, honestly counterintuitive shift in enterprise AI. Like, what if the secret to surviving the AI revolution isn't ripping out all those ancient legacy systems, but actually promoting them? We're going to look at how companies are giving these clunky old databases a sort of brilliant, smart overlay.
Building on top of them instead of destroying them.
Exactly. We'll look at the specific tech making it possible, and even some actual autonomous retail experiments that prove this works in the real world.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. What is the actual mechanism behind this agentic layer the author talks about?
Well, to understand the agentic layer, we have to start with why those legacy systems are so untouchable in the first place. You know, those older ERPs and planning tools, they hold decades of institutional knowledge.
Like the company's DNA, basically.
Exactly. The unique business logic, the historical supply chain data, the incredibly specific quirks and workflows of that exact company, it's all hard-coded into that architecture. If you replace them, you're risking basically corporate amnesia.
Wow, yeah. You lose the brain of the organization.
Right. So instead of tearing all that down, the agentic layer is built to just hover directly on top of it. You have these AI agents acting as this intelligent intermediary between the human workers and the legacy software.
So they aren't replacing the foundation at all. They're acting as a translation layer.
A translation layer, yeah, and also a layer of autonomous execution. I mean, think about the sheer volume of swivel chair work in a modern office.
Swivel chair work, like literally swiveling in your chair.
Yeah, exactly. When an employee reads a market report on one monitor, physically shifts their focus, and then manually types those exact same findings into a completely different forecasting system on another monitor, that manual gap between systems, that's what the agentic layer automates.
Okay, but let's look at how this actually functions under the hood, because the author points to several companies doing this today, like Auger is doing this in supply chain operations, and Intelo.ai in merchandising. SimpliContract is using it to automate legal reviews. But take Buynomics, for example, in pricing. Instead of just suggesting a new price on a dashboard somewhere, how does a tool like Buynomics actually execute the change?
Right, and that is where the overlay concept gets really powerful. Buynomics doesn't ask the retailer to abandon their old legacy pricing infrastructure. Instead, the AI agent just continuously monitors real-time competitor data from across the web.
Just constantly watching the market.
Exactly, and when it detects a shift, it calculates the optimal new price. But then, and this is key, rather than sending a ping or an alert to a human to go manually change it, the agent interfaces directly with the legacy system's API.
Oh, it does the data entry itself.
Yes, it translates that new price into whatever highly specific, rigid data format the old 1998 system requires, and it updates the database autonomously.
You know, it reminds me of, it's like putting a smart thermostat on an older, reliable furnace.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, like you don't tear down the walls of your house, rip out all the perfectly good ductwork, and replace your entire HVAC system just because you want, app-controlled temperature scheduling. You preserve that massive capital investment of the furnace. You just slap a brilliant little box on the living room wall that knows how to read the room and tells the old furnace exactly when to turn on and off.
Right. The smart thermostat doesn't care how the furnace actually burns the gas. It just dictates the outcome. And the agentic layer operates the exact same way. It leverages the underlying mechanics without getting bogged down by them.
I do want to push back on this architecture a little bit, though, because, I mean, if these old enterprise systems are so clunky and disconnected that they require all this manual intervention and API maneuvering in the first place, aren't we just putting a high-tech Band-Aid on a broken leg?
That's a common concern for sure.
Like, why build a highly intelligent, state-of-the-art layer on top of a foundation that is fundamentally messy?
Well, the key distinction is that the foundation isn't broken, it's just that the interface is unapproachable. The true value of those systems is the data and the battle-tested rules trapped inside them.
Ah, okay.
You don't want to throw away a decade of perfectly tuned supply chain logic just because the software looks like Windows 95. Preserving that massive investment is the entire point of the agentic layer. The AI agent doesn't care if the user interface is ugly. It doesn't use the screen. It just needs the data and the rules.
So the intelligence is in the rules, not the buttons.
Exactly.
But, okay, we have to address the massive logistical hurdle here.
Yeah.
We've established that the golden data is locked inside these ugly, unapproachable legacy vaults. The agentic layer is the brain, but brains are completely useless without a nervous system to connect them to the vault. Old software is notoriously stubborn. So how are they actually building the pipe to let these brand new AI agents plug into these dusty old systems?
This is where we hit probably the most critical piece of infrastructure in the whole article. It's a protocol that's rapidly becoming the universal standard. It's called the Model Context Protocol, or MCP.
MCP. Yeah, the author calls MCP the USB for AI, which I think is a brilliant starting point, but we really need to go deeper into why USB was so revolutionary in the first place to understand it.
Yeah, let's take a trip down memory lane.
Right. If you think back to the dark ages of computing, before USB existed, the problem wasn't just finding the right physical plug for your printer or your scanner. It was the drivers.
Oh, the drivers. It was a nightmare.
It was. The computer literally did not speak the scanner's language. You had to install custom software from a CD-ROM just to get the two machines to even shake hands.
Right. Every single connection was this bespoke, painful engineering project. And what USB did was standardize both the physical connection and the communication baseline.
Exactly. And MCP does this exact same thing for artificial intelligence. Before MCP, if you wanted a large language model, like a Claude or a ChatGPT, to pull data from your company's proprietary inventory database, you had to write a custom integration.
Which is incredibly expensive and super fragile.
Yes. But with MCP, you basically build an MCP server for your software once. It acts as an instant translator. It tells the AI, hey, here is the exact schema of this 1998 database, and here's exactly how you can read and write to it. Suddenly, that legacy logic is universally usable by any agent framework that speaks MCP.
And that standardization unlocks two fundamental pillars of this new enterprise architecture. The first one is conversational access.
Okay, break that down for us.
Historically, the value of enterprise software has been locked behind complex interfaces. If you wanted a specific forecast from the demand planning system, you had to go find the one employee who attended a 3-day training seminar just to learn which 20 drop-down menus to click in what order.
So true. I mean, if you're listening to this right now and thinking about your own company's archaic expense reporting software, imagine the relief of never having to log into that portal again. You just open your standard AI chat interface and type, hey, file a $50 lunch expense for my meeting with the vendor yesterday.
And that's it. The AI hits the MCP server. The server translates your plain English into the specific database queries the legacy software requires, and the task is done. The interface barrier completely dissolves.
The software literally becomes invisible to the human user.
It does. But the human user is really only half the equation here.
Right. And here's where it gets really interesting. Because the second pillar is entirely about autonomy. The author phrases it so perfectly. Agents need hands.
Yeah, that's such a great visual. An AI agent cannot rebalance an entire supply chain if it can't reach into the inventory system and physically execute the stock transfer. The MCP servers basically act as tools in the agent's toolbox. Every time a software vendor publishes a new MCP server, they're granting the entire agentic ecosystem a brand new capability.
And the startup ecosystem is moving aggressively on this. The article highlights the Microsoft for Startups Pegasus portfolio companies. We're talking about companies like Nimble, Omnistream, YDISTRI, Tembi, and Toolio. They span web data, retail execution, market intelligence, merchandise planning. And they aren't just building standalone tools anymore.
Right, they're building MCP servers.
Exactly. They were building these capabilities as MCP servers so they can instantly plug into whatever agentic layer the retailer has decided to deploy.
It's a massive shift in how software vendors even view their own products. They are accepting that their users might never actually look at their user interface. They are selling the capability, not the dashboard.
Okay, but let's talk about the danger here. The danger of making everything so accessible. Because if MCP dissolves the interface barrier so seamlessly that literally anyone in the organization can just casually chat with the core ERP system, we have a massive security problem.
Just the immediate fear, yes.
How do you prevent total chaos? If a brand new intern types a plain language prompt asking the AI to alter the company's master pricing logic and the AI has hands, what stops it from destroying the business?
Well, this is a vital misconception to clear up. MCP standardizes the translation, yes, but it does not bypass the underlying identity and access management protocols, the IAM.
Okay.
When the intern asks the AI to change the price, the AI agent is operating using the intern's specific security token. It translates the intent, passes the request through the MCP server to the legacy system. The legacy system then checks the token, sees it belongs to an intern who has absolutely no pricing authority, and rejects the command.
So the agent acts as your proxy, but with all your built-in limitations.
Exactly. It translates what you want into the specific commands the system understands, but it cannot give you the keys to doors you aren't already allowed to open. The legacy guardrails remain entirely intact.
Which is exactly why that legacy system is still so valuable. The old rules still apply. Well, all of this theory about translation layers and standard protocols, it sounds incredible on paper. But the best way to prove that a new piece of infrastructure actually holds up under pressure is to build a real business on top of it. And the author of the source article, Shish S., didn't just theorize about this. They built fully autonomous retail stores to stress test these concepts.
Those real-world labs are so fascinating because they didn't just use one massive omnipotent AI model to run everything. They used an architecture of narrow, highly specialized agents.
Right.
It was basically a chain of software contracts passing data down a pipeline with deliberate human checkpoints built into the flow.
Let's talk about the first experiment. It was a write-up titled, I Let Agents Run a Retail Store. And it was effectively an autonomous meme t-shirt business designed to chase internet culture in real time.
Yeah, the pipeline operated on a 3-agent system. First, you had the Scout. And the Scout agent's sole purpose was to monitor internet traffic, scrape social media, and identify trending cultural moments or memes.
Just constantly searching for what's viral.
Right. And when it spotted a viable trend, it didn't just casually chat with the next AI. It generated a strictly formatted JSON brief containing the context, the slogan, and the visual parameters.
So it passes that very rigid data contract over to the second agent, which is the artist. And the artist takes those specific parameters and generates original, print-ready, high-resolution artwork that actually fits a t-shirt template.
And finally, the artist hands the approved visual assets over to the publisher agent.
And the publisher agent is where it gets really gritty to me, because it doesn't always just send a clean, simple API request. If a platform like Redbubble doesn't have a perfect API, the publisher agent literally drives a headless web browser.
It acts exactly like a human sitting at a keyboard.
It's wild. It autonomously clicks the login button, fills in the password, uploads the design file, generates a catchy title and SEO tags, sets the profit margin, and physically clicks publish.
And the strategic takeaway there is velocity. The system proved it could take a fleeting cultural moment and turn it into a live, purchasable, physical product in a matter of hours.
Which is insane.
Right. Because a traditional human design and marketing team would take weeks to execute that same pipeline, by which time the meme is completely dead. It demonstrated AI's capacity for timing and cultural judgment.
But the second experiment pushed the limits in a very different direction. It was a post called From Photo to Figurine, where the author built an autonomous storefront named Mini-Me.
Now, the mechanism here was much more complex. A customer uploads a single 2D photograph of themselves. The first agent validates the photo to make sure the lighting and resolution are okay. Then, it orchestrates an external image-to-3D service to generate a fully printable 3D model.
Right.
It takes those CAD files, hands them off seamlessly to an external print-and-ship manufacturing partner, and then continuously updates the customer on the fulfillment status.
So if the meme t-shirt store was like this digital trend surfer riding the chaos of the internet, this 3D figurine store was a highly rigid, robotic assembly line. If a single piece of data is formatted incorrectly, the whole factory just grinds to a halt.
Exactly. The focus shifted entirely from rapid judgment to production reliability. And that shift really highlights a crucial friction point. The author explicitly notes that physical products punish sloppy automation in ways digital ones never do.
Let's drill into that distinction for a second. Why is the physical world so much harsher on an AI agent's mistakes?
It's entirely about the tangible cost of an error. Think about the t-shirt experiment. If the artist agent hallucinates and generates a completely nonsensical, really ugly design, what is the actual consequence?
Nobody buys it.
Right. The publisher uploads it to a digital storefront. It sits there taking up a few kilobytes of server space. The financial cost of that mistake is fractions of a cent in computing power. A digital error just vanishes the moment you refresh the page or delete the listing.
But in the Mini-Me store, the AI is driving a direct physical manufacturing pipeline.
Exactly. If the AI misinterprets the 2D photo, scales the 3D model's head to be, say, 10 times too large, and blindly sends that file to the print partner, the partner's machines will actually carve that monstrosity out of physical material. It wastes expensive resin. It wastes packaging. It incurs physical shipping costs to send a defective, weird product to an angry customer. An AI error in physical manufacturing creates a tangible piece of garbage that costs real money to create and real money to throw away.
Which really proves why the architecture of these agentic layers is so critical. You can't just let a language model run wild when physical goods are on the line. You need those strict validation schemas between the agents. You need human-in-the-loop checkpoints where an actual person reviews the 3D render before the final print command is issued.
The agents are handling the tedious swivel chair work of moving the files and formatting the orders, but the human retains the final authority over the physical execution.
So what does this all mean? We have journeyed from the anxiety of retail CIOs dreading a massive system overhaul, all the way to autonomous agents formatting JSON files and driving headless browsers. If we synthesize the core mechanics here, the picture of the future enterprise is incredibly clear. The agentic layer is providing the autonomy, the brain that can sense a change, decide on an action, and execute it. And the model context protocol is providing the connectivity, the standardized pipes that allow that brain to safely reach into the complex legacy vaults where the company's real logic lives.
The strategic lesson here is profound. The organizations that dominate the next decade will not be the ones who panic, burn a ton of capital, and tear down their mature infrastructure.
No.
The winners will be the ones who treat those decades of hard-coded business rules as a competitive moat and simply install this smart conversational overlay on top of it.
And for you listening right now, the implications hit much closer to home than just high-level enterprise architecture. Whether you're catching up on tech trends for a strategy meeting or just trying to understand where your own industry is heading, the reality is shifting right beneath our feet. The future of your daily workflow is not going to involve learning how to navigate yet another convoluted software interface with 20 drop-down menus.
Fully.
Right. It is going to involve you giving plain language, strategic instructions to an AI agent and letting the agent navigate the menus, format the data, and do all the exhausting swivel chair work on your behalf.
It fundamentally elevates the role of the human from just operating the machinery to actually orchestrating the outcomes.
Which leaves us with a fascinating and honestly slightly uncomfortable reality to consider. If MCP and these agentic layers eventually dissolve the barrier to complex software entirely, making every single employee a plain language power user, what happens to the human jobs whose entire value up until now was simply knowing how to operate those complicated, dusty old interfaces? When the interface completely vanishes and the machine just does what you tell it to, what will you do with all that freed up brain space?
It really is the defining question of the next era of work.
It truly is. So keep that in mind the next time you find yourself blindly copying data from one screen and pasting it into another. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.